Hello and welcome to the Saviors of Uldum final card review. First up, we have a very special card, Serpent Egg. 2 mana, 0/3 neutral egg with the death rattle, summon a 3/4 sea serpent. My wishes have been answered from the graces of God or Ben Brode or whoever's up there. Now getting a 3/4 is not as good as getting a 5/5, and I do still think Carnivorous Egg is better than Serpent Egg, but this is probably the best egg we have out now. Scarab Egg I think is still going to be a better option for Warlock just because they have the board buffing cards and they want to get a wide aggressive board, but they already have 2 different activators with their lackey and then that other spell that buffs all the minions out on the board, so why wouldn't they play Serpent Egg, which when it dies is going to give you a 3/4. The fact that this only costs 2 mana is also a pretty big boost, so I could see this being played in a competitive deck, but honestly that doesn't even matter. If this was the only card they released this expansion and literally every pack you would open you would just get 5 Serpent Eggs, then I think it would be a good expansion. This is the card we've all been waiting for. Now let's get to the remaining cards. First up we have Bizarre Burglary, 1 mana quest for Rogue, add 4 cards from other classes to your hand, and the reward is Ancient Blades, and this is a 2 mana hero power where you equip a 3/2 blade with immune while attacking. I think this is a pretty easy quest. Rogue has a decent amount of cards that will add cards from other classes to your hands. They have synergies that already work. I think if you put 8 stealing cards in your deck, you could pretty consistently get this from turn 7 to 10. And overall, I think it's a really positive effect, especially for a tempo rogue. Next up is Penance, 2 mana priest spell with lifesteal and deal 3 damage to a minion. I think there's a Warlock card that deals 2 damage and has lifesteal for 2 mana. So they're really getting shafted with this card. In my last video I talked about the quest for Priest, and I said I think it's going to be a little bit hard to restore 15 health. Penance is a pretty decent option to fight off aggro while also healing your hero and getting closer to your quest. If you're trying to tech against aggro and complete the quest, this is a pretty good card. Next up is Holy Ripple, 2 mana priest spell, deal 1 damage to all enemies, and restore 1 health to all friendly characters. So it's like a little baby Holy Nova. This is another card that's really good for the quest and also for going against aggro. And so now that these 2 cards are available for a quest priest to utilize and combat aggro, I think it greatly increases the chances that a quest priest is going to see play. Next up is Sinister Deal, 1 mana Warlock spell, discover a lackey. You actually get to discover the lackey, which means you'll be able to choose from 3 out of the 6 lackey pool. They also still have Evil Genius and Evil Cable Rat, which are pretty good ways of getting lackeys. And I think Blizzard is trying to make a Warlock lackey deck out of this, and I think this kind of makes sense because Warlock already utilizes some lackeys. But if you're going in the direction of Evil Recruiter or Dark Pharaoh Tekken, I think those are a little bit too slow and too value-based in order to follow that zoo format. And I don't think there's still enough ways of gaining lackeys in a Warlock deck for these 2 cards to be consistent. I think Sinister Deal could see some play in a zoo-like deck, but overall I don't think this lackey Warlock archetype is going to work out. Next up is Injured Tol'vir, 2 mana 2/6 neutral minion with taunt and battlecry, deal 3 damage to this minion. So when you play this, it's going to be a 2 mana 2/3 with taunt, but you could end up healing this minion to get up to 6 health. You could run this in like a quest priest deck. It's nothing too insane, but I wouldn't be surprised if it saw play. Next up is Beaming Sidekick, 1 mana 1/2 neutral minion with the battlecry, give a friendly minion +2 health. This is useful if you're trading in the early game and trying to gain board control, but I just don't think an aggro deck will want to use this card, and a tempo deck would probably prefer a better card. Next up is Sandhoof Waterbearer, 5 mana 5/5 priest minion, where at the end of your turn, restore 5 health to a damaged friendly character. Kind of decent. 5 mana 5/5 stats, you could do better, but you're guaranteed to get 1 heal off of this, and if you're playing against something like an aggro, then they're going to want to get rid of this pretty soon. Not being able to control the heal might be a little bit annoying. That sort of inconsistency can bring the competitiveness of a card down, but again, in a quest priest deck, this could be a nice way to tempo out on turn 5, as well as hopefully get close to completing your quest with 1 heal. Next up is Temple Berserker, 2 mana 1/2 1/2 neutral minion with Reborn and has +2 attack while damaged. This is actually an interesting card because when it comes back from Reborn, it's gonna have that +2 attack because it's already gonna be damaged and only have 1 health. So it's a 2 mana 1/2, but it's gonna come back as a 3/1. This could possibly see play in an aggro deck, but the initial 2 mana 1/2 stats are still a little concerning, and if your opponent just ignores this minion for 1 turn until they can deal with it, then I don't know if you're going to be able to activate this damage, and then you're only dealing 1 damage next turn. Next up is Neferset Thrasher, 3 mana 4/5 Warlock minion. Whenever this attacks, deal 3 damage to your hero. It's kind of nice because you control the negative effect, so if you really don't want to deal 3 damage to your hero, then maybe you just don't attack a turn. Probably the best deck for this is a Zoolock, where they don't care about their own hero's health, and for 3 mana, if they can get these stats out on the board, they're going to do that. Next up is Bug Collector, 2 mana 2/1 neutral minion with the battle cry, summon a 1/1 Locust with Rush. You gotta put some bad cards in there, right? I mean, 1/1 with Rush, it's kind of okay, but 2 mana for a 2/1, nah, it's not good. Next up is Candle Taker, 3 mana 3/2 neutral minion with Reborn. I like the idea of this minion. If it was a 3/3, I think it would see play, but the fact that it starts out with 2 health is pretty weak. So in terms of tempo, I think it's really close to the line, but I just think it falls below where it's probably not going to see much play. Next up is Zephyrs the Great, 2 mana 3/2 neutral legendary elemental with the battle cry, if your deck has no duplicates, wish for the perfect card. So this is a neutral card meant to support the no duplicate decks, and wish for the perfect card is a bit interesting. The card tries to read the situation of the board or whatever's happening in the game, and they give you 3 options like a discovery to choose which card you want. They gave an example that when your opponent has a giant board and you play Zephyrs out on the board, it might give you 3 board clear options so that you can decide how you want to try to clear your enemy board. I'm assuming if you're like low on health or something, one of the cards might be a healing option. Maybe if you're close to lethal, they'll give you some damage. I think that could be some cheese. This is a really creative card, and it's going to be hard to judge the power level of Zephyrs before we actually get it. What we do know is that creating a deck of no duplicates is going to be pretty hard to do, and that the current cards that reward you for having no duplicates, they kind of vary in power. I like the concept of this card, and I think for such a cheap cost, it's gonna be a good card if a duplicate deck actually works. Next up is Worthy Expedition, 1 mana druid spell, discover a choose 1 card. I'm not really a big fan of cheap spells. It's pretty hard to rationalize in most decks unless you're playing something really aggressive. Even Quest Druid, whose hero power allows you to get both rewards from choose 1 cards, probably isn't going to run this card because they'd rather just run the choose 1 cards instead. It's just one of those 1 mana spells that isn't going to see any play. Next up is Ancient Mysteries, 2 mana mage spell, draw a secret from your deck, it costs 0. This is a really good card. It's a 2 mana card to draw a specific card from your deck, and then it reduces your secret to 0 mana. It's almost like a 2 mana mage secret, except it has to be from your deck, and if you have multiple secrets, you don't get to choose which one you get off of this. Now, is Mage going to run secrets? I'm not really sure, but either way, in the future, if Secret Mage does become a thing, this is going to be a really powerful card. Next up is Oasis Surger, 5 mana 3/3 Druid Elemental with Rush, and choose 1, gain 2/2, or summon a copy of this minion. So this could be a 5 mana 5/5 with Rush, or you could summon 2 3/3 minions with Rush, which does give you an extra 1 damage, but maybe the 2 minions won't survive. Once you complete the Druid quest and you gain both choose 1 options, this is going to be 5 mana, summon 2 5/5s with Rush, and that is pretty insane. And so maybe you complete the quest by turn 5, but even if it takes 1 or 2 more turns, this is going to be a really strong tempo play when you complete the quest and play this out on the board. If Quest Druid is competitive, then I think Oasis Surger is going to be a staple of that deck. Next up is Crystal Merchant, 2 mana 1/4 Druid minion. If you have any unspent mana at the end of your turn, draw a card. So this is again for the Druid quest, but it's just a funky card, and Druid has enough draw elsewhere that they don't need this. Next up is Dune Sculptor, 3 mana 3/3 mage minion. After you cast a spell, add a random mage minion to your hand. in a Cyclone-like mage that runs a bunch of spells, this could just add more value to your hand. I don't think this is the best value for the deck, and in the turn that you're playing a bunch of spells, is it really going to be worth playing this 3 mana minion? Or do you just play it on one turn and hope it survives to the next turn? I just don't think the reward or the cost is really going to work out with the archetype. Next up is Golden Scarab, 3 mana 2/2 neutral beast. With the battle cry, discover a 4 cost card. It's 3 mana for 2/2. I don't know why you would play this. I don't know why you wouldn't just play a better 3-drop and then put enough 4-drops in your deck to tempo out. It's a weird card. I don't really get why you would run it, so I don't think it's going to see any play. Next up is the Hunter quest, Unseal the Vault. You have to summon 20 minions, and your reward is Romkin's Roar. Give your minions +2 attack. Oh my goodness. So summoning the 20 minions, right now Hunter doesn't have a ton of options for that. I did peek ahead at some of the other cards, and there are ways of summoning a lot more minions for Hunter. So if I were to guess, I think a deck constructed for this quest would probably be able to complete it at least by turn 10. The question is, how long can Hunter fill their board to where this hero power is going to be worth playing? I think this card's going to depend super heavily on how control decks are able to combat aggro. If you can complete this quest quickly or get your hero down quickly enough where this quest is just the final kicker, then this could work out. But I think most likely it's going to take too long to complete this quest, and when you finally do, I think most control decks are going to be able to stabilize and win the game. There are amazing combos with cards like Unleash the Hound. There are amazing combos like Unleash the Hounds, which could not only get this quest done quickly, but also combo with the hero power really well. Unfortunately, I don't think this quest is going to work out. It's going to be too slow against other control decks, and I think Hunter is just going to do what it does best and continue to smork. You know what, I'm going to kind of go out of order, and instead I'm just going to stick to each class at first. So let's continue with Hunter. We have Swarm of the Locusts, 6 mana Hunter spell, summon 7 1/1 locusts with Rush. So this is a way to get closer to your quest. It also allows you to deal 7 damage to a minion. You could also have some beast buffs out on the board. It would be a pretty nice combo to use Revenge of the Wild with Swarm of Locusts. Basically for 8 mana, you would be able to double this value. Another good combo would be with Scavenging Hyena, where you could play that and then summon 6 locusts with Rush and buff that to hell. At 6 mana though, it's not amazing because it's just basically dealing 6 damage or putting out a pretty vulnerable board. It's a tough card in Hunter, especially because it's so expensive. Next up is Rampkin Wild Tamer, 3 mana 4/3 Hunter minion with the battle cry, copy a random beast in your hand. It's a nice way to add more value to your hand. You could use this, and even if you hit it on a cheaper beast, it's still pretty good. The cost and stat lines make sense, and the fact that you add a little bit of value to your hand is pretty good. I still don't think it really synergizes super well with any Hunter game plan right now. It's not a bad card, I just don't think it's going to find the right deck. Next up is Hyena Alpha, 4 mana 3/3 Hunter beast with the battle cry. If you control a secret, summon 2/2 hyenas. Or sorry, summon 2 2/2 hyenas. So for 4 mana, you could get 7/7 stats out on the board, shout out to the meme. It does require you to control a secret though. I think Hunter's hero card has such a big upside, and if you're gonna play a Hunter deck that includes a lot of spells, then I think you can pretty easily fit 1 or 2 secrets in there. With Hyena Alpha, it's gonna be a question of, can you get the secret out there on the board, and can you play this before your secret is procced, or maybe you have to play them all at the same time. I don't think this would work out unless it's in a Hunter secret deck. You just don't want to be playing a 4 mana 3/3, and you don't want this to be a dead card in your hand. We'll have to see if Secret Hunter is good enough to stay competitive. Perhaps Hunter's Pact can help. It is a 3 mana Hunter spell where you add a random Hunter beast, secret, and a weapon to your hand. I'm pretty sure there was a fan-made card that was sort of in the same flavor, where it was some sort of like survival pack. Getting a random beast, I'll be honest, it's actually kind of bad. I think more than 50% of the beasts in Hunter just aren't really that good. I think Hunter secrets are a little bit more consistent, and if you're playing a Hunter spell sort of deck, like this card is probably going to see play in, then most likely you're going to run a lot of the secrets, and you'll have some secret synergy, so this could be kind of useful. And looking at the weapons, I mean, some of these are alright. These weapons are just pretty decent value. I think Hunter's Pack is a pretty useful way to add more value to a Hunter's Hand. In a tempo deck that maybe runs out of steam or is trying to find lethal, Hunter's Pack could be a nice option. Now let's finish off the Druid cards. We have Garden Gnome, 4 mana, 2/3 Druid minion with the battle cry. If you're holding a spell that costs 5 or more, summon 2 2/2 treants. This card really sucks unless you get the battle cry, so you better make sure that you have a spell that costs 5 or more pretty consistently in your deck. Maybe a token Druid runs Gift of the Wild and the Forest Aid, so depending on how you draw, by turn 4, hopefully you'll have a spell that costs 5 or more in your hand. I think the card's just a little bit too finicky with that battle cry, and although Token Druid always loves filling their board, I think they have better options than Garden Gnome. Now moving on to Mage, we have Naga Sea Witch, 5 mana, 5/5 minion. With the battle cry, change the cost of spells in your hand to 5. So you can make Blizzard cheaper or Flame Strike cheaper. I think making Power of Creations 5 mana is pretty interesting. Pyroblast for 5 mana, that's a fun time. It's also cool because you could end up playing 2 Puzzle Box of Yogg-Saron's in one turn, which I know everyone wanted to do as soon as they saw that card. Unfortunately, I think right now for Naga Sandwich, oh, I just realized. Did I say Sea Witch the time before? Nah, it's Naga Sandwich. That's amazing. Unfortunately for Naga Sandwich, right now, Mage just doesn't have amazing high cost spells. I don't think there's really a competitive combo unless the combo is literally you draw both Pyroblasts and then play this, and then on turn 10 you deal 20 damage to your opponent. But I think it's pretty hard to draw that sort of combo, and for now Naga Sandwich isn't going to see play, but I think in future expansions this card could very well be crucial to a powerful Mage combo. Moving on to Paladin, we have Ancestral Guardian, 4 mana, 4/2 Paladin minion with lifesteal and Reborn. The fact that it has such low health, and the fact that you only need to deal 3 damage to this minion, although it is 2 separate times, it's just too weak of a card, especially for 4 mana. Not going to see any play. Next up is Subdue, 2 mana Paladin spell, setting minions attack and health to 1. I feel like I've seen it before. Have I reviewed this card already? I don't really know, I'm going crazy. It's almost like a 2 mana single target removal, where if you're just dealing with something with big stats, this is an easy way to subdue it. I think it's a pretty good single target spell for Paladin. So if they need this sort of single target removal, maybe in a Shirvala deck, then I think this is going to see some play. Next up is Rogue with Clever Disguise, 2 mana rogue spell, add 2 random spells from another class to your hand. I like this card because not only is it just 2 mana, but you specifically get random spells, and in general, spells are better than minions. Also, it's important to note that it just says another class, as opposed to your opponent's class, so this card doesn't really depend on who you're playing against. I think it's a fun card, and it gets you halfway towards your rogue quest, so this just may be one of the cards you use to try to get this quest early. Next up, we have Shaman's Mogu Flesh Shaper. What is he, a plastic surgeon? 7 mana, 3/4 Shaman minion with Rush, and costs 1 less for each minion on the battlefield. So if there's 4 minions out on the battlefield, this becomes a 3 mana, 3/4 with Rush, and I think maybe that's the most you'd want to pay for this type of value. I just think the reward of this card is not going to be worth the risk. So I'm going to guess it's not going to see play, but if anything, maybe an aggro Murloc deck will be able to find a place for it. Next up is Sandstorm Elemental, 2 mana, 2/2 Shaman minion with the battle cry, deal 1 damage to all enemy minions, overload for 1. I think this is a pretty decent card. It's a little bit of a board clear. It also combos with the other elemental minion that summons 2 1/1s with Rush when you play an overload card. You get instant value with this card. The 2/2 stats aren't amazing, but I think you have enough uses for a card like this where I think it's going to see play. Next up is Totemic Surge, 0 mana shaman spell, give your totems +2 attack. Why not? Let's try to bring Totem Shaman back from the grave. If they continue with the totem archetype, maybe it will see play in the future, but for now, Totemic Surge, it's not going to see play. Next up is Vecina, 4 mana, 2/6 Shaman minion While you're overloaded, your other minions have +2 attack. Thunderhead is a really great card for overload synergy, and getting that tempo comboed with Vicina is pretty decent. There's also that weapon that gains +2 attack when you have overload, and with all these overload synergies, there's now a better reason to play those overload cards. But I don't think it's enough to make an entire deck around that archetype. It's not a bad card because you can be overloaded, have minions out on the board, and then play this, and you'll instantly get the value because your other minions now have +2 attack and can deal that damage right away. I think there could be a deck that uses Vanessa. Have I been saying Vanessa? I meant Vicina. Jesus Christ, I'm going insane. There's a lot of cards here, okay? I've been talking a long time. I just went out to my backyard and threw an egg on the ground. Come on. I'm doing a lot of hard work. It's going to be a little bit tough, and so I'm a bit on the fence with this card. Moving on to Warrior, we have Armored Goon, 6 mana, 6/7 warrior minion. Whenever your hero attacks, gain 5 armor. Gaining 5 armor is no laughing matter. The one thing is that if you're attacking an enemy minion, then you're probably also losing some of that armor. It's a 6 mana 6/7, which again, at this price point, the pool of minions becomes pretty competitive, and I don't know if this is going to be worth it unless you're guaranteed to get a good amount of value from this card. I think just attacking once with this out on the board isn't enough. The Warrior quest, in my opinion, seems kind of weak, especially compared to their hero card, which is a lot easier to get. And Armored Goon is a nice way of gaining armor, but it requires your hero to attack, which I don't think most decks really need to do in order to be good. You see, there's like a cycle where basically I'm trying to say I don't think Armored Goon is going to see any play. Moving on, we have Dwarven Archaeologist, 2 mana 2/3 neutral minion. After you discover a card, reduce its cost by 1. This is a weird card because there are a lot of discovery cards in the game, but the fact that you need to combo this with another card that allows you to discover a card, and then it gets reduced by 1, it all seems really weird to me. I think Dwarven Archaeologist is too clunky and situational to actually see play. Next up, we have Spitting Camel, 2 mana 2/4 neutral beast. At the end of your turn, deal 1 damage to another friendly minion. Maybe in a warrior deck that utilizes like copying a damage friendly minion. Nah, this one's pretty bad. Next is Kobold Sand Trooper, 2 mana 2/1 neutral minion, death rattle, deal 3 damage to the enemy hero. Maybe there's death rattle synergies, but it's not really good for aggro, and I don't really think there's a viable combo, so not going to see any play. Next is Quicksand Elemental, 2 mana 3/2 neutral elemental with the battle cry, give all enemy minions -2 attack this turn. The minion itself is kind of poorly statted, and the battle cry in the end just isn't super valuable, so not going to see any play. Next is Volpera Scoundrel, 3 mana 2/3 neutral minion with the battle cry, discover a spell or pick a mystery choice. And mystery choice is add a random spell to your hand. So how does this card work? Do you play it and you have 3 options and then the 4th option is mystery choice? That's how I interpret the card anyways, and if that's the case, then that's pretty interesting. You have 3 options, and if they're all really bad, then you may as well just go for the mystery choice and get a random spell. I don't think there's much use of a card like this, so I hope they explore this sort of battle cry with a better minion in the future. For now, not going to see any play. Next is History Buff, 3 mana 3/4 neutral minion. Whenever you play a minion, give a random minion in your hand 1/1. If you're able to get a bunch of cheap minions in your hand, maybe in a paladin deck or a hunter, then a card like History Buff is just going to make them better. Problem with this card is it doesn't really synergize with any one thing in particular, and it's not super powerful, so I don't think it's going to see competitive play, but it would be fun to try a deck with it. Next up is Body Wrapper. 4 mana 4/4 neutral minion with the battle cry, discover a friendly minion that died this game, shuffle it into your deck. I don't love this card because shuffling it into your deck is a pretty slow play. Putting this in a Lucent Bark Druid deck would actually be pretty interesting. I still think it's too slow to even see play in that deck, so I don't think it's gonna see play. Next up is Phalanx Commander, 5 mana 4/5 neutral minion. Your taunt minions have +2 attack. I think it's too niche of a buff. The stats aren't even that bad, and there are a pretty decent amount of taunt minions in the game, but I just don't think there's that much of a use for this card, especially if you're just playing taunt minions, unless of course you're going for the warrior taunt buffing deck, which I don't think is going to see play. Next up is Faceless Lurker, 5 mana, 3/3 neutral minion with taunt and battle cry, double this minion's health. So this is another warrior taunt buffing card, and really you do want to hit a buff on this minion because playing it as a 5 mana 3/6 just isn't really that great, but a 5 mana 5/12 with taunt is good. So I think this is a good minion for that taunt buffing warrior, but again, I think that class runs into the problem of not having enough cards to actually buff the taunt minions, so I don't think Faceless Lurker is going to see any play. Next up is Blatant Decoy, 6 mana 5/5 neutral minion with the death rattle. Each player summons the lowest cost minion from their hand. I don't like it because the stats are trash, and the death rattle means it doesn't happen instantly, although maybe you can trigger this multiple times and mess up your opponent's combo. Also, if you're playing a big minion deck, then activating this death rattle instead of summoning you like a 2 or 3 drop might summon you an 8, 9, or 10 drop. Maybe there's potential with this card, but it's so expensive, it seems pretty clunky. Unless you have a certain combo in mind, it's not going to be that useful. Next up is Wasteland Scorpid, 7 mana 3/9 beast with poison. Even with poison and whatnot, I don't think it's that great of stats. Not good. Next up is Pit Crocolisk, 8 mana 5/6 neutral beast with the battle cry, deal 5 damage. It's a pretty powerful battle cry, no doubt about that. Dealing 5 damage is nothing to sniff at. But all of this costs 8 mana, and that to me is just a tiny bit too expensive. So I don't think it's going to see any play. Next up is Living Monument, 10 mana, 10/10 with taunt. Taunt minion? Taunt warrior? Probably not. Not that good. Losing language? No see play. Next up is Mischief Maker, 3 mana 3/3 neutral minion with the battle cry. Swap the top card of your deck with your opponent's. This is a cheeky card. What are you doing here? The fact that it's a neutral is pretty fun. I would imagine this would be in a Warlock or something instead. But you can play this in any deck and potentially mess up an opponent's combo. It's nothing actually competitive, but if there is an annoying enough combo in the expansion, maybe something like a Mechathune Rogue, then I'm going to play Mischief Maker just to mess up someone's combo. Next up is Desert Hare, 3 mana 1/1 neutral beast with the battle cry, summon 2 1/1 Desert Hares. It's summoning a lot of beasts, maybe for the Hunter quest. I don't know, this could be one of those sleeper neutral cards that does see play just because a certain deck can take advantage of these spread out stats. I would guess that this isn't going to see play, but maybe it surprises me. And finally, the last card, we have Octosari, 8 mana 8/8 neutral legendary beast with the death rattle, draw 8 cards. 8 is the new meme number. It is no longer 4 mana 7/7, 6 mana 6/9. No, those don't matter anymore. 8. Octo. Get it. Yeah, this is a ridiculous card. Who needs to draw 8 cards? This is crazy. I mean, if you're playing an aggro hunter, not only is this a beast, so maybe you have some beast synergies, but playing this on turn 8 and hoping to God it doesn't get silenced would allow you to refill your hand and potentially find that lethal you need. Unfortunately, like I said, it's a death rattle, so not only could it get silenced, but also it's not instant value, and even though you're spending 8 mana in that turn, so you probably wouldn't be able to play much of anything anyways, it is kind of a shame that you don't get the cards right away. The ridiculousness of this and the fact that you can draw so many cards might mean that an aggro deck would be able to take advantage of this. Honestly, Hunter seems like the best bet because they always seem to have an aggro deck and they always need card draw, so maybe this is their solution. Alright, there we have it. Thank you for joining me for the Saviors of Uldum card reveals. I've been recording for like 2 hours. That's how many cards there were, so I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, feel free to share. I also just got a new computer, so there should be some higher quality content from here on out. I'm looking at it right now. It is, god damn, is it beautiful. It's got me really excited to make a bunch of different videos. You saw the little skit I did in the beginning, and I'm excited to make stuff like that. So, thank you all for watching, and until next time, ta-ta.